Text mining in R with Supreme Court opinions. Part 7. This is the last one, like super, super pinky promise, pinky swear, last one. And this is just a little bit of a discussion for you guys because when I did this, illustration, I was looking at another illustration that I saw online that was very short and was about reading in a single PDF. And it was an illustration of the PDF tools package. And they used the PDFs from the SupremeCourt.gov site. And I saw it and I liked it. And I liked the fact that that website had a library of PDFs that you could download. And so I put this illustration together. But, I didn't spend a ton of time polishing this illustration. I developed it. I tested a lot of the code to make sure it worked. But like I said before, I'm not claiming that I have found the best way to do this. I've just found a way, and I think it's a way that illustrates a lot of nice functionalities of working with text data in R, so I provided the video to go along with it. But now that we've gone through it, we should probably talk about some of the things in here and how they might be done a little bit better if you were interested in a cleaner workflow and a little bit more like production quality type of code base to do this sort of thing. So to just do the simplest wrap up that we can, right, this whole thing centered around downloading opinions from the SupremeCourt.gov site, and those opinions are available as PDF files. And so I downloaded a handful of PDF files to an R project. I wrote some functions to import those PDF files into an R workspace, and I used those functions to create data frames of words from those PDF files. And then I did some plots. I did some plots of some word counts, and that's what we've gone through here. And as I've gone through this, I've thought about some improvements to add to this, and I wanted to put these out there for you guys as kind of discussion topics or things for you to think about. One thing is that, I have this case list object in my code, and it's a list. Basically, it's a vector. Where is case list? Let's see. No, it's back here on the RMD, and it's at the top. It's one of the prereqs, basically. I have this case list object, right? And that's nice for a static case list, but if this were a living project that were being updated frequently, there is something I could do, which is I could create my own case list. Let's make sure I've got my working directory. So I could do list files and list files data, and that will tell me all the files that are in data. And so if I were to put all of these PDFs in a single directory, I could use a list.files line of code to get the names of all the PDFs in a directory and iterate through that list the way I've done here, rather than hard coding a case list. So that's one thing that we could think about doing to kind of improve this a little bit. The second thing is, it's an open question about whether we really need this get markers step. So the get markers step made sense to me because I thought about what if we were dealing with a really giant library of PDF files. It might be less than efficient to take a justice and go through all of the PDF files. If we had, say, 100, then we would pick a justice, rifle through 100 PDFs, find the text that we want, and then we would do that again for the next justice. So we pick another justice, and then we would rifle through those 100 PDFs again. In my mind, I kind of thought that it would be more efficient to just kind of comb through all of those PDFs once, right, and get all of the places, look for all the markers that we want. And then when I go through the justices, then I already have a pre-populated list of where the text is from that particular justice that I want to extract. But it is an open question about whether that really makes sense. You could develop a workflow that maybe nests this get markers step within a text grabbing step so that you could perhaps write a function that just accepted the argument justice, and within that function you could have code that would open all the PDFs, look through all the PDFs for that justice that justice's opinions, whether they be majority or dissenting opinions, and then spit out a data frame of words. And it could be done that way. Let's see, another question I have for you guys is, should I have another function that does the word counts? So in that part 6 video that I shot, I went ahead and I wrote a loop, and in that loop, I wrote the loop to do this for all of the justices, okay? And in that loop, I did the word counts, but what I left out of that was the part where I took out the stop words. So when I did this for Chief Justice John Roberts, I remembered to write some code to remove the stop words. I did not remember to do that in the part 6 video where I showed you how to kind of loop through the markers data frame and do this for all of the justices. And what might have made a little bit more sense is to do this word count, summarizing the words, and then removing the stop words, and then summarizing the words again. I could have put that inside of my tokenized text function, and it might have made a little bit more sense to do it that way, because then when I tokenize the text, the result of that function would spit out the word count data frame without the stop words that I wanted. That's something I could do. And the last thing I'll discuss is that, if we're plotting more than one justice, I think it's pretty easy to see by looking at this particular plot that, this is not a super informative plot. If you were comparing across these justices, you have someone like Clarence Thomas, who in the handful of PDF files that I extracted from the web here, Justice Clarence Thomas wrote a lot of dissenting opinions, and Brett Kavanaugh, I think, maybe only wrote 1 or 2 opinions, and so the word counts, the unnormalized word counts, are much higher for Clarence Thomas than for Brett Kavanaugh. I don't know if that matters or not, but it seems like it would, and I can check that by running the markers data frame. I'll have to run my prerequisites, my case lists, and I'll have to redo my source file. But if I do that, and I generate my markers data frame, just looking here, it seems like Brett Kavanaugh only shows up once in my list. So maybe if this were a kind of comparative analysis of justices and their writing styles, we would want to kind of take into account the fact that some of these have authored more opinions than others.